want to get onto the wrong side of the mother giraffe protecting her babies. But no, they don't fight one another in that classic necking that you see male or bull giraffes do, where they stand side on and they whack each other with their heads, using their long necks as leverage and those horns as knuckles, brass knuckles, to add force to it. They can knock each other off their feet. In actual fact, that's the objective of it, is to down an opponent so that a male giraffe can stand over one, domineering it. And it's the most submissive posture that a giraffe can be in, is on its side, off its feet. And one that male giraffe try and force each other into. Oh, nice view, huh? So there over those hills in the background, as we were saying a little bit earlier, that is where the wildebeest are at the moment, just on the other side of that. And they're all lots of good grass. There's been good rain on that side of that ridge over the last couple of months, and the grass on that side is fantastic. And so I doubt the wildebeest will be coming over in any great rush, although what are all those dots? No, those are all rocks and bushes. You got some vultures catching some thermals in the top of your screen. It's just got hot enough now for thermals to become active. And there, vultures got some height and are following a bubble of hot air into the air. Very similar to how a lava lamp works, if you've ever seen one of those. And you get this column of hot air, or hot, whatever you want to call it, the substance that rises. It's joined to the heating pad, and then it plops off and it rises under its own momentum. That's exactly how the hot air works out here. And it'll be attached to the ground, and then it'll plop off and then be subject to all the effects of Coriolis force and whatever other air currents are up there. And as long as that is rising, the vultures will use that column of hot air to gain height without having to flap their wings. And of course, being a big heavy bird, flapping the wings is very energy intensive. Much easier just to let hot air take you where you want to go. Very similar to that balloon that we sometimes show you from here. The governor's balloon safaris. Sabi Azumi, I haven't heard from you in a long time, and you've asked a fantastic question. Would you be able to milk a giraffe, and you wonder how much fat is in a giraffe's milk? Definitely not as much as in whales or in dolphins. I can tell you that. Would you be able to milk a giraffe? Absolutely, I think you could milk a giraffe. You might have to get it, rather than a bucket to put the milk in, get a bucket to stand on so that you can reach the mammary glands, which lie between the back legs. Fat content, interesting. There absolutely would be documented tables of the fat content of the various large mammals out here. And so, Saberia Zumi, I'll ask you a question back. Could I ask you to research it and let us know using that hashtag Safari Live? Or, and get back, and I'll share it with everyone watching. Comparatively speaking, because otherwise it really won't make much sense. How much fat does giraffe milk contain versus that of, say, an elephant or a rhino or a hippo, warthog, crested francolin? No, I'm only joking. Crested francolin obviously don't nurse their young. Go back to these ostriches and see what they're doing. I promised that we'd do that a little bit earlier, but we didn't get there just then. We started showing you these ostrich, these 3 female ostrich. And we'll finish showing you these ostrich. We're going to carry on going down to that marsh that you see, or that we saw in the distance. And we're going to leave you with a picture of these ostrich while we send you across to Tristan.
Well, we are now on our way down Vulture's Nest. We found tracks for Tingana, and he was going along central, and then all of a sudden he just turned around and went straight down into the bush. So I'm checking Vulture's Nest just to see if he hasn't come out this side. So far nothing that I can see, so maybe he's somewhere in the Mulawati. I'll check the Mulawati drainage, but it's really tough with him because we know 2.5 hours he could be anywhere. He could be far by now. The other day we followed him from the dam and it took him all of about 45 minutes to reach our southern boundary, so we know in 2.5 hours if he hasn't laid down somewhere it's going to be very difficult to find him. But I'll just check here in case, and if there's no tracks coming out here, well, it could indicate that he might have laid down where I had those last tracks, and I'll go back and just have a quick look around there. The problem is that this area is not a friendly area at all to follow a leopard or to even look for tracks. It is dense, it's thick, it's really very, very difficult to even use a vehicle to try and track through there. There's just tracks for hyenas though all over the place that look as though they're going towards sort of Chitwa side, which is what we've been seeing a lot of the time, is the hyenas keep pushing sort of southwards, and I wonder if there's not a den on the southern side of our boundary, because the tracks come to the camp and then go south all the time and head right to the southern boundary. So I did check around the Mvubu den site this morning like I said I would do, and there was no evidence of hyenas in that area. Right, let's see. No, nothing here. I thought he might pop out in this area, but it doesn't seem like he did. What's this? Tracks for a male lion walking here. Now I wonder if this is our lion that we heard this morning, because it looks like those tracks are on top of the vehicle tracks. I just want to check carefully up top here. Maybe not. Maybe those are older tracks that just haven't been driven. It's difficult to say because there's really been very few vehicles driving around. In fact, it's just been myself and Ali the last few days, because Vuatela and Gallagher hasn't had any guests, and so not too many people have been driving around. Let's see. I don't see any tracks for a male lion emerging this side on top of the vehicle tracks. No, I'm afraid no tracks there. I might just check back in the Mulawati again, but I didn't see anything on Vulture's Nest either, although it could have come down from Nyala Road north and south. We know they sometimes take that route when they're walking, so we'll check around and just make 100% sure. But I think those are the tracks from 2-3 days ago that were had by someone. I think it was Ralph that followed those, so I don't think they're fresh ones. It's just that we heard that lion roaring this morning, and I thought, well, maybe it might be him that had walked here, but alas, it doesn't look like it. But I can give you an update on the Nkahuma Pride at least. The Nkahumas are up in the north in Buffelshoek. They've come out of Manyeleti and back, and they sound like they're directly north of Buffelshoek Dam, inside Buffelshoek side, so they're not really too close to the boundary at this stage, but they are directly north. So maybe by this evening or tomorrow morning they will have crossed in towards Buffelshoek Dam side, and it still sounds like just 11 of them. No sign of that little cub still, so I'm not sure where that little cub is at this stage or what its story is, but no sign at this stage of it. Now I see lion tracks here that I want to just have a quick look at, and so while I do that, let's go back to Stefan Winterberg, the man of the wild, and see what birds he's managed to attract to his location.
There's a bird of the plains. Here we have an immature yellow-throated longclaw, one of the more common and striking of the grassland birds. Quite often these grassland birds have no color on whatsoever, but these longclaws definitely do. And you get two different kinds here. You get the rosy-throated longclaw, and you get the more common yellow-throated longclaw. That's what you're looking at now. Called longclaw, they're back toes. So they've got 3 forward-facing toes and a backward-facing toe. And the claw on their backward-facing toe is elongated, probably 3 or 4 times longer than what the front claws are. And it's because they eat the seeds on top of the grass, and a longer grab or a wider grab, not a longer grab. A longer toe gives them a wider grab, enabling them to spread their weight over the tops of the grass, and therefore enable them to feed on grasses that they wouldn't otherwise be able to reach because of their weight. So a nice grassland adaptation on that yellow-throated longclaw. See what else we've got over here in these grasslands. Quite often these grasslands, very similar to how I've seen grasslands in the Kruger National Park around Satara. So if you go directly east from Djuma, you exit the woodland and you enter some grasslands. And at first glance, the grasslands almost always seem empty until you just sit and you wait a little bit. And you start seeing the most amazing things popping up. Caracal, African wildcat, cheetah, wild dog, hyena, are all grassland specialists. Rhinoceros, elephant, obviously the more conspicuous. That's quite nice. Sammy Jane, you want to know if the birds nest in the grass here? They absolutely do, Sammy Jane. There's a whole bunch of birds that nest in the grass. And, nests and nesting material is quite difficult to find unless you build it yourself. And so I would say that in this particular area that grassland nests are probably the most common form of nesting here. Trees are fairly few and far between on these grasslands. And holes in those trees or platforms to build nests on in those trees are going to be even fewer to find. So I would say absolutely, most of the birds here I think will nest in woven grass nests that they do close to the ground or even on it. Let's carry on. We've decided that we are going to skirt the edges of that marsh, not on the edge of the marsh. We're going to skirt the very fringes of the marsh to see what we can find in these bushes and shrubs. Now, Saberio Izumi, you did reply with an answer on the fat content of a giraffe, and it's at 12%. So thank you very much for that. We're just waiting to see what other answers come in, what that 12% is relative to. So what is 12% relative to a human, for instance, or relative to a hippopotamus, or for that matter of fact, a dolphin or a whale, which have some of the highest fat contents in their milk. So we can find out exactly sort of what that means. What does 12% mean? So, Kirsten just tells me that a grey seal, which is very similar to how the whales and that would be, is 53% fat. So, about a quarter of that is the giraffe, which is not, I suppose it's relatively high, considering that giraffes don't have to cover themselves in blubber to stay warm in freezing Arctic waters. So, grey seal, 53%, thank you very much for that, and a giraffe, 12%. I think still pretty high. So here's an interesting fact coming through now, is that the fat content of human milk is 4.5%. So less than half of that of a giraffe, but much higher in calories. Wow, this is turning into an interesting bit of information and debate. So giraffe, 12% of milk. I would imagine that the calcium needed to grow those bones nice and strong, and the phosphorus needed to grow those bones nice and strong, are what caused that, in my opinion, fairly high fat content. So giraffe, 12%, grey seal, and milk that people drink for nutrition, the most fat that it can contain is 22%, and that is from reindeer. Obviously, milk is a fantastic way of nutrition, and people that live in those very harsh conditions up in the Arctic Circle and surrounds, that need to supplement their diet with a lot of milk, they drink a high fat content. The highest that we can drink is 22%. So human milk is 4.5%. We can go to a maximum consumption of 22%. Giraffe are half of that at 12.5%. And seals, which are probably up to one of the most, is all the way up at 53%. And one of the reasons why we can drink cow milk and why we can give cow milk to our kids is that it is also around 4%. So that is interesting. So fat content in cow milk, 4%. Max so far is the grey seal at 53%. I'm sure we'll probably be able to find fat content slightly higher than that, but it'll be amongst the whales, I presume. But isn't that pretty cool? Right, we're going to skirt the edges of these two thickets at the moment. At the moment it's just bumpy and across some grassland, and not much interesting to show you right now, but Tristan does have something very interesting to show you.
We do indeed. We've got a beautiful big lion track, but before we get into that, copy that, I'm not too far. Can I come join you there, please? So I was just going to say we've got a beautiful big lion track that we're going to follow, but it sounds like the guys have found Tingana exactly where we had just seen his tracks, which were coming this way, and I wanted to check Chelapan, but it doesn't sound like he's come this far just yet, which is fantastic. So let's go and try and see if we can't go and catch up with them, and we'll just follow the lion track as we go, because it's going north up the way we want to go anyway, which is fantastic. So we're going to just carry on going, and I wonder if we didn't just drive past Tingana and just didn't notice him. I was so busy looking at tracks that I might have just not even seen him next to the road, because it sounds like it's exactly where we just came from, where I last saw his track going off the road and sort of to the south. So hopefully that's him that they found. They say it is a male leopard. Now the lion tracks just keep going straight up the road here, so I want to just quickly check if they cut in behind the dam wall. No, they don't head there. There's just tracks for Tingana from last night. Our lion just continues straight up here, and I'm sure this is the same lion we heard this morning. Maybe he's still on our side somewhere, because we didn't find any tracks going from the dam unless he crossed behind us, which will be quite frustrating if he did. But he's still going straight up at this stage, and I wonder if this is not the same lion that we had yesterday during, well, the tracks we had yesterday, and maybe he just came out during the night and walked this way. Very exciting nonetheless. Mark, just confirm, you said you crossed the dam wall and then you were on the first road that turns south. Okay, copy that, thank you. I'm just coming up towards the dam wall now. I'll see you fairly shortly. So it sounds like Tingana is exactly where we saw his tracks. We must have just missed him on the side of the road, really. I don't know how we did, but we must have missed him there. But that's the way it goes sometimes. It just shows you how elusive they can be. And if he's lying down flat and you're not paying attention, it's actually very easy to be able to miss a big male leopard like that. Now I see the lion's tracks are still going straight north up the road here. So I wonder if he didn't just miss the dam cam. This lion must have somehow evaded the dam. I don't know how, because his tracks are going right to that direction, and they're on top of all the vehicle tracks, and I drove here yesterday afternoon, so it means that he walked here during the night. It seems as though they've cut off. No, still going. I can still see them. Seb, where did this lion go? Because we drove here this morning and I didn't see any tracks. Maybe he was behind us and crossed behind us. Although I didn't pay too much attention when we crossed over the dam wall. I was too busy trying to get to sort of Mvubu side, which is a lesson learnt, is that you actually should pay attention wherever you go, because there could be anything at any stage. Even if you just heard something a little further away, it doesn't necessarily mean there isn't another animal right there with you. So let's just see. Still going northwards here, so he must have gone straight towards the dam. Like I say, I'm not sure how he sneaked past the dam without any of us noticing, but it seems as though that's exactly what he's done. Unless he's lying right here somewhere. No. Peyton, I'm sorry I didn't hear your question at all because the radio somebody is shouting. I don't know why they're talking so loud on the radio, but Megs, if you can repeat that. So Peyton, you say that Mara has found cats for Catterday and it's time for Djuma to find some spots. Well, Peyton, I agree fully. I think it is time for us to really see some spotted creature in our life, and so hopefully we will find him shortly. But this line cut off here didn't come this way. I wonder if it didn't go up towards Quarantine, and that's why we missed it. I'll come back a little bit later and try and check there. But it's good news for the girls for this afternoon, because you've got an all-girl team from Djuma this afternoon. You will have Ellie and Taylor out because I go on leave, and so maybe one of them can try and follow and see if they can't find where that male lion went if we don't find him this morning. But it seems as though he was coming straight up towards the dam and then has cut off. So either he's gone in behind the dam wall and that's why we didn't find him, or he's cut up towards Quarantine, which would also be quite possible because we didn't see any tracks up that way, and that was right at the start of drive, and I didn't actually check Quarantine properly. I came straight down from the lodge itself. Okay, now we're going to try and find this other vehicle that apparently has found Tingana, because, well, he doesn't quite know where he is. Apparently he's somewhere. He said he came over the dam wall and turned south, so this would be exactly where we should be. And I know that Tingana's tracks were here, so I'm hoping that wherever they are we will be able to find them. Might just give them a shout on the radio quickly just to find out exactly where they go from here. Mark. Confirm, I'll get your visual from the road. Okay, copy. Just confirm, did you go through a small drainage over a sort of bridge and then up onto the other side? Copy that. Yeah, that's exactly where I lost his tracks just now. I was just checking around. Thank you. So it's exactly where we thought he would be. Well, where we had his tracks. If only we had just turned to the right, we would have actually probably seen him. I was too busy looking at his feet, and he probably was just watching us, Seb, and just had his head down, as leopards can sometimes do. And so I'm pretty sure he's right here somewhere. There we go. Is exactly. Look, Seb, where did I say the tracks went south? And there he is right there. If we had just had a little look, I should have gotten off the vehicle, but well, that's the way it goes. Sometimes you have to trust your instincts and actually sort of go with them. And the problem is that often when tracking, the best thing to do is to be able to actually first just check that there's no sign of this animal that's crossed out. And so that's pretty much what we did, which is the first way you do tracking. And so we would have come back this way had we not found any tracks, like we didn't. And so it would have eventually worked out. It would have just taken us a lot longer to find him than it has now. Now I'm trying to work out a way to get round to where he is, because he's lying by all accounts in a horrible position, and there's no way to get through this side. I don't know how we're going to get to him at this rate. I think, Seb, we're going to have to try and just go through this section here. Now, of course, I don't want to push Rusty through too many thickets, because, let's see, can we sneak through here? Okay, Seb, just be careful on the right and left here. So there's some very sharp thorns, and well, I should not stall the car. Let's try see if we can't just quickly slide through. There we go. We're good? Okay, cool. We've got to be careful of the antenna as well, as Seb says. Now, I don't know how I'm going to get to where he is. It always looks so open from the sort of outset, and then you... Oh, there we go. Sorry, little boy. I didn't see you there. Sorry. It's actually Hosana. It's not Tingana. Or Thamba, actually. It is Thamba. So this is Thamba. It's not Tingana or Hosana. It's just that he's got massive feet again, so he's fooled a whole bunch of other people. But that is Thamba. It's not Tingana at all. I think it's Thamba. We'll have to just get another view of him. They've got another one over there? Maybe. Maybe it's Tundi and Thamba. That would make a lot of sense. Well, this is cool. I'm super excited if it is little Thamba. He's just sort of strolling in front of us. Now, I just want to ask Mark if he's got another leopard, because Mark's the guy that's with us in the sighting. Mark. Do you have another Ingwe where you are? Okay, I've got one young Madora here. Thank you. So that is definitely little Thamba. You can see those light-colored eyes, that pink nose, and those bright black markings around the face. So Thamba is still around this area. Now, yesterday somebody gave us a report that Tundi and Thamba's tracks were at Chitwa. It seems as though that is not the case. Now, I wonder if Tingana was also around this area as well. But that is most definitely Thamba. Recognize that beautiful face anyway. Hey, Seb. Oh, he is magnificent. And look at him in this morning light. Yes, I think Ali and Taylor will both be very jealous. Megan is just saying to me that that's their bogey animal for both of them. I think Taylor's only seen him twice and has never seen Tundi, apparently, which is crazy to think that, you know, she's been here a lot longer than I have, and I've had quite a few sightings of Tundi already, and Ali hasn't seen Tundi either, so that both of them are in for a treat when they do see Tundi. She's a beautiful female, and my favorite of the females that we see out here, so hopefully they'll both get to see her. But he is magnificent. Now, I think he's in a state of much like what the elephant was doing and going to the toilet just now, so I think he's just caught in a bad place at this stage, but I'm sure he'll move from where he is. Not that I'm complaining, because it's a perfect view for us. He came out from behind that thicket, and isn't he magnificent? He is one of the most beautiful leopards you could ever wish for. And it's amazing how big his feet are. You know, Hosana's got biggish feet, but this guy's feet, they really do look as though they're almost Tingana size. You get confused with his feet often. I know that a lot of the trackers out here have all said to me that it's Tingana's tracks, and well, there we go. The tracks that we followed were for a male leopard, and they just turned off the bush. And I wonder if he didn't hear our vehicle and he just came off and turned off before we got here. And if we had actually just looked, we might have spotted him. Where are you off to? You coming to say hello? A lot of you say he looks quite tired. I agree with you. He does look as though he's had a long day. Are you coming to say hello, big boy? Yes, you are. He is so cool. The more I see this cat, the more fond of him I become. He looks very good as well. Look, he's got a little bulge to his belly, so he's obviously had a good meal somewhere recently. So maybe eating and kind of moving around. See, he's sniffing. So this is all new areas for him, and it's amazing how much time they've been spending around here. It's definitely here a lot more than we've actually been finding them. It's time to actually start concentrating and try to find them every day, because they seem to be here most days. And he's now heading back down towards the road. I wonder if he's not going to make another dam cam appearance. I wonder if he wasn't the one that was actually walked across the dam wall. It must be him, because the tracks come from there. I followed those tracks all the way along Central, which comes from the dam wall itself. So it must be from where he came. Seb, that's awesome, isn't it? When we see this little boy, I always get so excited. He's such a good-looking leopard, and he seems to always be up to something. And well, there we go. So Djuma spots and Mara tawny-coloured lions, and that's then a perfect way to start a cat a day. Oh, now I'm trying to get over a big branch, but Rusty doesn't want to go over. Come on, Rusty. So while we try and sort of keep up with little Thamba, because he's going to go into some horrible bush, let's go back to Stef and see how he's doing and where he is, and well, what's going on his side of the world on this beautiful morning.
Have a look at this beautiful setting here. We've now come to the edge of this marsh we were aiming at, and the first animals that we get to show you are one of my favorites. I know James shares this with me. These dainty little gazelles. This is the Thompson's gazelle. We find two gazelle species here, the Grant's gazelle and the Thompson's gazelle. This is my favorite one. It is in this particular area, the smaller of the two gazelles. You get the Grants and the Thompsons. But it is, of all the gazelles, the largest of the gazelles. Of the small gazelles, that is. I know it doesn't make much sense. But I quite enjoy them. They're just very colourful. Very fast little antelope. You quite often see them out manoeuvring even cheetah, who are really their only predators. And this looks to be a bachelor herd of males. One of the most desert-adapted creatures that you get out here is these gazelles. Not all the gazelles in particular are pretty desert-adapted. And if you have a look at their noses, you'll see that their noses are quite thickened. Now, they do contain a preorbital gland, which they use to scent mark bushes and trees with. There you can see just below the eye, and the one closest to us is that gland. But they've got a thickened nasal cavity. And what they can do is they can pant through their nasal cavity, which is very thickly lined with blood vessels. And the evaporative cooling of water in their nasal cavity cools down the blood, which then goes to their brain and helps them cope with heat stress. And they can live very comfortably in areas where the daytime temperatures go way above 50 degrees centigrade, which is probably around 120, somewhere around about there, degrees Fahrenheit. Very comfortably live there without dehydrating too much or running the risk of heat exhaustion. Frantically feeding. They always got this sort of pace about their feeding. And grooming themselves. We're joined by some zebra and a topi on this open grass plain, and this being the terminal end of the drainage lines coming out of the forest on the slopes of the Ululolo escarpment, and just before it goes into the Mara River. This is generally a wet area. In the wet season you wouldn't be able to drive here. You definitely get stuck, but in the dry season it makes for the last of the green grass, and as you can see from the height of the grass has been fairly well utilized over the last couple of weeks and months. And these zebra making the most of it. They obviously are not as selective as the Thompson's gazelle are and can eat a much wider range of grass. Sammy Jane, while we watch the zebra scratch its behind, and you can see how shiny that stump has come from the scratching post that it is. I'll answer your question now on horns and hooves. You wanted to really, I'm in a battle to talk being serious watching the zebra rub its bum up and down that branch. No, we can stay there. Xander, ever the politician. You always see these rubbing posts out in the bush, and this is testimony to how they stay so shiny. Alright, back to the hoof question there. Alright, so hooves and horns are made of keratin and hair, and to a degree animals with very strong tummy acids can digest them. Crocodiles in particular, hyena are another animal that can digest, for the most part, hooves and horns. But larger predators and hyena and not much else barring some insects, the keratin beetle and the horn moth, can actually digest those horns and hooves. And so most of them are, in lions in particular, what they do is they cough out or regurgitate the hoof and the horns. And some hairballs, a lot of hair is passed straight through the digestive system completely untouched, and is defecated out to be left lying out in the sun. Not much does it. So they do eat them, they just gain no nutrition from them whatsoever. That rubbing post is having the attention of another zebra. This time scratching a neck. This looks like, I mean, there are lots of stumps here, but this one looks like it's just being used again and again. You can see that patina that it has. In these hard to reach places. No, that's not going to work. Scratching his leg. Yeah, armpit. Now the belly rub. There we go. Scratching the armpit. Almost looks like it's having fun, eh? Ears back in pleasure. There we go. Belly now. And the zebra in the distance, it's using the hook to scratch on its head. There we go, and on the bum. Doesn't look like they get much right, do they? I don't know, if you were a zebra, I'd probably straddle the stump and use it that way. There we go. Well, that seems to be working very well. That's a proper scratch. Very awesome. Now this one, scratching its belly. That's at the right height for a belly rub. I don't think it does much else. Getting under the tail. Here's a youngster also practicing on another portion of the stump. Also been rubbed smooth over the ages. Looks like they start on the head and then they move down the body, ending on the bum. There we go. That's a good scratch. With that whole branch moving it. Kirsty, could you please repeat the name? Sorry, I didn't quite get that. Oh, excuse me, R. Laura Moore, you said these zebra are so clever utilizing these stumps. They absolutely are. I mean, I must be honest, when you've got a single hoof and no toe and a fat belly, which your very stubby neck can't get around, I think the use of a branch is very clever. So I agree with you 100%. I think they are very clever utilizing this branch. You probably find it's exactly why they come out to this field, is that there is such a variety of rubbing posts around. Look at this little one. Ah, Tristan seems to have found Thamba again. So off you go. Enjoy.
Here's exactly what we're doing. He's such a beautiful cat, and he's now just sitting on top of a termite mound. He chased a little dwarf mongoose quickly into a hole and then couldn't get to it, and he's now decided, well, this is where I'm going to recline and enjoy my rest for the day. So he's now having a really good grooming session, and you can see just how well he blends in this grass. Isn't that amazing? It's the same color. That coat is almost perfectly matched to the color of the grass that he's lying in, and it's why we probably drove past him, as we just literally looked straight past him instead of actually looking properly. We just kind of drove past him, and I honestly thought it was Tingana, which is a bit of a rookie error in that his tracks, while they are quite big, are not quite that big just yet. And I suppose it's just you kind of get excited about it when you have Tingana on the brain, you forget about it. And I thought Tingana would have moved a lot further, and that's why I didn't actually check those tracks, but I should have checked properly, because I even said to Seb that I wonder if he's not lying down in here, but we'll just check around and make sure. Anyway, it doesn't matter, we at least got to find him, which is fantastic. But isn't he beautiful? And you can see he's becoming so relaxed now. He's not worried about the vehicles at all. It was amazing when these two, when he was still with his sibling, who was unfortunately killed, and they were young, they were petrified of cars. They used to run. They never used to have any sort of good sightings. And I remember trying to see them when they were tiny, and every time I tried to get there, they would just have run away before we could get there, and we never really got a sighting of them. And the first time I actually saw him was only when I joined Safari Live, even though there were multiple sightings of Tundi, but the cubs always used to run away. So it's really nice to see that he's gotten a lot more relaxed now that he's spent a little bit of time. Oh, is your shoulder difficult to get to? And that's how you groom your back, apparently. That's so cool. Oh, I can just see him falling over if he does this too much. That's so cool. I think that's where he's going to probably lie for the morning, although he's quite a busy cat. So remember the other day when we left him behind the dam wall, there was no sign of him that afternoon. He seems to move around all over the place, and to find him in here is next to impossible unless he's walking close to the road or he lies down and stays here the whole day. The girls are going to have a very tough time to find him in here. It is thick. The elephants have pushed over I don't even know how many trees. It's almost impossible to get the car past here, and so if he moves down towards the drainage section, it's going to be a tough time to find him. And also if Thandi comes back and takes him somewhere. Interestingly though, there's no tracks for Thandi, and like I say, they was said that there was tracks for these two going to Chitwa Dam yesterday, but we haven't found a single track for a female coming back this way or a young male, and so I'm not sure that it was Thandi and Thamba's tracks. I think maybe, just maybe, it could have been Thandi. Oh, what are you watching? Are you watching a fly? There's something buzzing around his head that's got him very alert. See, there we go. Let's see if he's quick enough to actually grab it. But I think, yes, like just going back to those tracks, is that those tracks were for Tingana and for Thandi walking down towards Chitwa Dam, and not for Thamba, because Tingana was eventually found on Nkoro, so it would make more sense than these two. And like I said, there's no tracks of Thandi anywhere in this area this morning coming back this side. It's just tracks for him, and we know that they've been hanging around here, and I would be very surprised if they haven't been here, in fact, every day, and we've just been not being able to find them because of the area that it's in. Isn't he beautiful? Now, he's typical young leopard. You see how he chases things and then, well, it's back to sleep straight away. So he's got that youthful exuberance and really is exercising it to the best of his ability. Now, we're going to sit with him and just enjoy this peaceful scene that is Thamba grooming himself. And while we do, I believe Stefan has still got those zebras that are entertaining themselves with their rubbing post.
So we've got all these zebra now congregating around this scratching post, and a completely different scene to that one that you with Tristan and that young leopard cub. Isn't it just fascinating how you can jump from one completely different scene to another? They're all now around these various scratching posts. They first congregated around that ultra shiny one that looked very uncomfortable. They've now left that one and they've all moved over to this one, which is a bit of, oh, there we go. They've now left that as well. Now they're busy eating. All right. Bath time or scratch time over. Lots of zebra that have just come up here now in this herd. You'll notice that unlike the plain zebra that we find in South Africa in the Kruger Park, these zebra very rarely display that shadow stripe, and have got a more distinctive black and white coat without that virtual zebra shadow stripe evident on the Kruger National Park zebra. They dirty their coat. I always find these ones a little bit more attractive because of that lack of that shadow stripe. They are the same species though, and as usual they always got these very healthy looks, fat bums, fat bellies, really good looking animals these are. There we go. On a spike, that one seems to have a bit of a better angle. Becky, you just asked if the rubbing post removes ticks. Yes, absolutely. They will be able to remove ticks. So it's a dual function. It's a scratching away of dirt, old hair, scabs, ticks and parasites, especially in hard to reach places where these ticks and parasites do congregate. And zebra in particular love these scratching posts. Just have a look there. I mean, that doesn't look comfortable whatsoever for that zebra, and yet, here we go. scratching the cheek. I think it would be much easier just to get your friend to groom you. Isn't this just, just take a look at what we're looking at here, everyone. It's a black and white horse scratching itself on a pokey stick in the middle of a green field of grass with some brown grass in the distance. Isn't it just wonderful? Something that seems so common, yet, looked at in context with everything else over here is just bizarre. That one's a little bit more fluffy. Really getting into that stump there now. Love the patterns on the front legs of these zebra. There on the shoulder blade. The two favorite parts on a zebra for me are that coat pattern, that triangle that you see on the shoulder blade, and then the chevron on the head, on the forehead of a zebra. Of course, every zebra's coat is as distinctive as a fingerprint. David, you wanted to know if these stumps are naturally here or if they were left here by humans. David, 100% natural. So I would presume that you're talking about logging detritus, or there's similar scenes that I've seen in forests that have had a bit of logging happen to it. And no, these are all just trees that have been knocked over by elephant and damaged by floodwaters and are just lying here. This is a drainage line, and this drainage line is also at the terminal point of a drainage line stretching all the way from the forests behind us. And I think that in times of flood, you probably find that these sticks and stumps are the flotsam that have come down this drainage line that you're seeing here now and were washed into the swamp by very heavy rains that came all the way from that. Well, the rains were all over the place, but the volume of water in this creek bed came from those hills where we have a lot of these trees. And I think that's just the elephants having pushed the trees down on the banks of this river, that then in a high volume year coming down and then spilling into this swamp. And as the water slows down, it loses the ability to transport these stumps, and then these stumps come to rest in this area. And that is what I think happened here. While we have just in this one collection, or one spot, this collection of pretty epically placed and convenient scratching posts. These zebra are still coming out of the distance. That one looks like a tree was there. The rest are all trees brought here. You may hear in the distance zebra calling. It's a constant here. In the Kruger Park, when you hear zebra calling and an alarm call, it's almost always an attention-seeking mechanism for us in terms of guides, and usually is because there's been a disturbance to that zebra, mainly lion or leopard or wild dog or hyena. Here the zebra just sort of seemed to call all the time, and doesn't mean much outside of the zebra communication. Right, now that this scratching is finished, why don't we go and have a look at what Thamba's up to.
Well, he's not scratching, but he's grooming, and shame, he was all tucked up and flat and looked as though he was about to go fast asleep, and the flies have been driving him crazy, so he's been trying to catch them, and every now and then he's been grooming, and there's been lots of shaking of head and twitching of ears and all kinds of sort of biting at the air, and it's not gone well. But look at the size of his feet now that his paw's just gone back down into the grass. But it was really nice just now. He had his paw up against his head, and you could see his paw was almost the same size as his muzzle. It was quite amazing to actually see how big those paws are for such a young leopard. We know he's only turning a year old in July, so that means that he's not even a year yet, and his paws are huge. Although it's the 1st of July today, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is the 1st of July today, so his birthday is coming up. We don't know exactly when he was born in July. We just know the first reports of them were in July, so somewhere around now would be his birthday. So happy birthday, young man. It's a year old, and well, you are in as good a condition as a year-old leopard could ever be, so you are doing very well. It's also interesting just to see how little we've seen Tundi with him at the moment. We've had quite a few sightings of him, but not very much of actually Tundi spending too much time around him. And we know that as he sort of starts to get older now, so the time with him is going to be less and less and less. He's still reliant on her, and she still does look after him because we see them walking around together every now and then, but the time spent with her is getting a bit less. Look at the size of that. You see how big that is? He has got massive feet for his age. Now if he grows into those, he's going to be a very big boy. You can see in relation to the size of his body just how big those paws are. I actually would really love to find a sighting of Tingana and Thamba somewhere in the same area where I could find the tracks for both of them and measure them out and just see whose are actually, or how much bigger Tingana's are. I'm sure Tingana's are a little bit bigger, but I don't think by much. And it's quite interesting just to see the sort of size difference between his and Hasana's foot. Hasana still doesn't look like a young male, whereas Thamba's, I know it's confused multiple different people already. And well, it certainly confused us this morning. I was sure that those were Tingana's tracks. But I suppose when you've got nothing to compare them to, it does sometimes happen. But he's definitely wanting to sleep. And you can see how difficult it would be to spot this animal. If he stops moving his head and he puts his head flat, imagine trying to spot that while driving. It is almost invisible when he lies in the grass like this. When his head moves, it's much easier because obviously you pick up that movement, but as soon as his head goes down, he just melts into that grass and he becomes almost just part of it, and it's very hard to see that there's actually a leopard there. Now, Seb and I were discussing how we can ID Thamba even from the back of his head, and if you look on his left ear there, he's got a very interesting set of spots. Now he's shaking his head, but there we go. You see that one spot just on the top of his left ear is very indicative of Thamba. No other leopard that we've seen here has that perfect spot on the left ear, just as it kind of joins onto the head. And so, oh, there it is. You see them? It's a perfect spot just on the top of his ear that you can ID him just from the back if you wanted to. So hopefully some of you got screenshots and you'll be able to use that next time he's in a difficult, precarious place and all you can see is the left ear. We'll be able to ID him from that. Shame, my boy. Are the flies giving you trouble today? So Sammy Jane, you say apparently their tongue is like sandpaper. Well, it is. It has got these fine hairs on them that are very rigid, and those hairs are very rough, and they need that because one, when they groom themselves, it gets rid of all the loose fur. It acts like a brush, and it can keep their fur in good condition and keep their coat shiny and healthy and get rid of parasites that they might pick up. And two, when they're feeding, they'll use that rough tongue to lick off pieces of meat off the bone, as well as get rid of the fur of the animal, because they ultimately don't want to eat the fur of an impala or a bushbuck or nyala, because that's just going to take up space in the stomach and it's very difficult to digest. So they use that very rough tongue to pull and brush off that fur basically and expose the skin, and then they feed off it through that, so that they don't actually have to eat too much of the fur itself, as well as the fact that they can then groom themselves and make themselves nice and clean as well. So it is very hooked and very rough. So Mary, you say he blends so well into the grass's color. He does. Isn't it amazing just how perfect the coloration is for a leopard? You can see why they blend in and why they can be so difficult to find. Like I say, if you're driving past at 10 miles an hour past this area, you're really going to struggle to see that, especially when he lies down flat. If his ear stops twitching, that moment there, you can see he just looks part of the furniture, doesn't he? He looks as though he's actually part of the mound itself. So they are perfectly designed to blend in, and they have to be, because remember, a leopard is not as fast as a cheetah or a lion even. It's a little bit slower than that, and so it has to be able to get very close and ambush its prey, and it needs to be able to blend in with its surroundings so that it can get within 3-4 meters of its prey and then explode out with that powerful boost that it gets from those big powerful legs and catch that animal unawares. So its coloration has to be perfect, and well, those black dots just help to blend in even further. Now, little Thamba will have not known the animal that Stef has gotten with him, but it is one of the fastest antelope in the world, and so let's go across to Stef and have a little look.
Let's have a look at this collection of animals standing in the open. Very unlike that young leopard cub who's blending into the grass so effectively. These pastures, these green pastures on the edge of these marshy areas, are home to some of the animals that really enjoy utilizing them. Zebra and topi being the most common, and warthog, which there's a lot of in between these as well. These topi are basically the non-migratory cousins of the wildebeests and really enjoy short grass pastures in the dry season, using those quite like broad muzzles. When they lift up, if it lifts up, you'll see very mobile lips, eating only the short green grass. They don't enjoy long grass at all at this time of the year. And these green pastures where you find them lying up in their dozens, in lots of groups. Topi, quite interestingly, have very distinct feeding times. They feed only in the mornings, probably until about 9 o'clock or so, and then in the afternoons from about 4 o'clock until it gets dark. The rest of the day is spent either sleeping, standing on top of termite mounds, or standing in these ranks where they nod at one another. Here you can see a side profile of a topi in a typical ruminant posture, ruminating or chewing the cud. So it's swallowing a bolus, it will then regurgitate. There you go, you saw the throat bulge. Regurgitate into its mouth, chew the grass that it's been eating for the morning, much smaller. Let's see if it swallows it again. There we go. No, not just yet. And that increases the surface area for microbial action to take place and digest the grass. And that means that it can use much less grass than a bulk feeder like a zebra would to get the same nutrition. One of the fastest antelope on the planet, only outpaced by the pronghorn deer in North America. And definitely the fastest antelope in Africa. Bizarre looking animal, actually. Good condition. You can see how their coat is shining. Let's go through to these warthog and have a look at what they're doing on the right of us. There's now a few warthog here with some topi. Probably I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 warthog. And some walking in the distance over there. Also enjoying grass and the grass shoots and rhizomes, unmolested because of these short grass plains. And lots of eyes and ears to see everything around. I also see that something lying down there having a snooze. The warthog that's in the distance there having a snooze out in the open. I must say, I think the best time to have a sleep would be in the middle of the day. All these lions hanging around here scare me. Margaret, you'd like to know if these topi and gazelles migrate as well. No, these are sedentary herds and form the bulk of the animals that are found in the Mara Triangle year-round. There are two different types of animals that live here in the Mara. You get animals that migrate, and you get animals that don't and are sedentary. But the animals that are sedentary here are very wide in their distribution and absolutely numerous. There's just lots.
it seems that the gremlins have migrated to the Mara, much like the zebra and wildebeest, and have attacked Stef. But it's okay, Stef will beat them off. If anyone can do it, it's definitely him. After all his self-defense classes that he's taken, Stef is quite the man when it comes to keeping gremlins at bay, so I'm pretty sure he'll fend them off fairly quickly and be back with us just now. As you can see, little Thamba has had all too long an evening and is now completely tired, and has tucked himself away in the grass and is going to have himself a very nice nap. I highly doubt he'll still be here in the afternoon, given that the sun is going to get up, but it feels like it's going to be quite a warm day today. There's no wind to speak of as yet. It's still sunny, it's bright, and so I don't think he's going to really spend too much time here. I think he'll have a good nap, and then by this afternoon he probably will have found himself some shade. The problem is where we are here, with Seb and I were just talking about it, it is almost impossible to maneuver inside here. The elephants during last year's drought pushed over so many trees, and you can't actually see a lot of the stumps in this long grass, and it makes it very difficult to negotiate. And I think the vehicles themselves, if he had to have gone mobile and moved a little bit more than what we had him this morning, I think we would have struggled to keep up with them, that's for sure. So hopefully, for the girl's sake, that he does lie just somewhere in the shade on this mound and he's still here this afternoon. I do hope that is the case, since he is flat, and as you've all commented, he looks quite sleepy this morning. So I'm hoping that will be the case, but he is definitely out for the count for today. It's as much as I think we're going to get out of Thamba as what we had just now, and well, it was still fantastic to see him, and at least we got him walking around, and he gave us a beautiful show as he went up onto the mound and then catching insects and grooming. So I think he's earned his little bit of rest this morning. Seb, should we leave him there? I think we should. I think that's about it. Now I'm going to just try and work out how I'm actually going to get out of here, because, well, it seems as though it's quite dense, although I think I can probably just reverse back. Seb, just be careful on your left, because there's a buffalo thorn. So we're going to try and just leave straight back. There's a few stumps, so it's quite a tricky section to get through. Oh. There we go. I had to just duck to get out of that. Bye bye, little Thamba. I'm sorry if I woke you up. But there we go, straight back. And there we go. So I think we're all good. I think we can just negotiate our way straight out of here, which is fantastic. It's hopefully not going to be too thick, and like I say, I'm hoping that he just stays here for the day, and that this afternoon one of the girls will be able to find him and be able to get a really nice sighting of him. There's a branch that's on the road already, so that's good news. Now I'm going to try and head back just to where I had those male lion tracks, just in case. You never know, maybe he's sleeping somewhere there and I can find him in the last little bit of the show, given that we have only about half an hour left, which is not very long when it comes to tracking, but we definitely will try. Now I just need to let other people know that I've left the sighting, because there are some others that wanted to come. Now when it comes to the Mara for the rest of the morning, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to join us again. It seems that the power has gone out, which means the internet has gone down, and therefore gremlins are in full force that side. So they are working to try and fix it, and hopefully we will see Stef again this morning, but well, maybe not. So it could just be me for the last half an hour, which hopefully none of you will mind as we bumble around Djuma. Station's left the lock of Thamba. He is still static on that termite mound. There's probably really only space for 2 vehicles. There's a branch on the road on Central, just on the eastern side of Giraffe Dip. Open lock. Right, now, little male lion, or big male lion, where have you gone? I think it's time to get rid of the gloves. It's starting to get quite warm now, so get rid of those and they can go be relegated to the passenger seat. That's better. Definitely didn't see any tracks of that male lion coming in this area, so I want to go quickly back to the last track that I had and just check where he went. He might have gone up towards Quarantine and maybe gone up Gallagher shortcuts and northwards, but it definitely sounded like when we heard him roaring this morning, it sounded like somewhere down this area on the eastern side of the Mulawati, or eastern side of the lodge and Ingas. Both Seb and I heard him and we thought he might be here, but I wonder if he didn't just go from there and then cut straight across. What do you think, Seb?
I agree.
So Ethan, you're asking a question that we're all asking ourselves at the moment, and why is that we rarely see buffalo at Djuma? Ethan, I honestly no idea why the buffalo have been so scarce this year. You know, normally we don't see many buffalo in the summer. Granted, they move up into Manyeleti and into areas where there's really great grazing that they can spend time, but I've never seen such a shortage of buffalo like we've seen this year. It's so far, they should have already started to ride back, and we should be seeing the odd buffalo bull here and there, and at most of these small mud wallows, particularly as water dries up. You can see here how Vuurtela Dam is drying by the day. The edges, you can actually see where the water is receding, and there's a big mud patch that's being shown to you. So, you know, we should be seeing buffalo at dams like this at this time of the year. It's dry enough that they should be heading here. Also, they should have exhausted a lot of the grazing in other parts of the reserve. So I honestly don't know. I think one of the contributing factors to what's happened is that last year there was a marked decline in the number of buffalo, particularly in this area due to the drought. So we had a lot of buffalo that were killed by lions, a lot of buffalo that died naturally, and it meant that there was a decline in the population within this particular section. As well as that, is a lot of the areas have had a lot of rain where we didn't have rain quite late in the year. So like Satara, which is the central parts of Kruger, it's big open grassland and perfect for buffalo. They had quite a lot of rain late in the year, and that's meant that there was a lot of grazing up there, and so a lot of the buffalo are probably spending time. Oh, careful, green pigeon. Green pigeon almost flew into the front of the car. A lot of time up in that area grazing, and so I think they're still up there. The grass was still green about 6 weeks ago up there, so there's still a lot of growth there, and they can then come down and maybe filter into this area. So I'm not sure why we haven't seen more bulls, but the herds, I would imagine, will start to come as it gets a little bit dry and those areas start to get exhausted a little bit more. But it really has been quite poor in regards to buffalo numbers. I can't actually even tell you the last time I saw a buffalo, which is quite strange. It's normally an animal you see quite often. So Vegas Beauty, frog or slob? Which one was it? Frog. Snob. Vegas Beauty Snob. You're wondering when Djuma will get more water? Well, not for a long time. It's still now the dry season, so the next rains theoretically will only be end of September, beginning of October if we're lucky. Otherwise, maybe even a little bit later into November. So still a long way away for our rains to come. And so it's going to get a lot drier before it gets wetter in this area, and it's going to be quite a tough time for some of the animals. But there's our male lion truck. I can see it there. So let's see where it goes. Seb, did we miss it this morning? Or did I miss it, should I say? I might have. I think I might have. Oopsie. It's here. No, it crossed there. So no, Seb, I think we drove over it. Well, I drove over it. It was also, it's... We were looking for Thamba, exactly. We weren't focusing on what we were doing, and so we were looking at Thamba. Let's see where he went from there. Now, I'm surprised it wasn't seen on the dam cam, because it looks like... You see, I didn't see any tracks going this way. Where did he go to from there? Because I don't see a single footprint coming this way, which is very strange, given that, well, no vehicles really drive here. Oh, there he went. So he crossed over that side. That's why we missed it. Now, where did you go from here? So he walked straight towards the dam cam. He must have just sneaked past while nobody was looking. Naughty lion. There he was here, and he walked straight towards the cam, and it looks like he goes down towards the lodge side of things, so Gallagher's shortcut would be a place to go and check. I can see the tracks for the leopard as well, but he goes straight that way. He doesn't come back up this way, so he's gone straight down towards sort of Gallagher's shortcut side, which means that I'm going to try and turn around and go that side and see if maybe he's not lying at Gallagher Pan. Given that there's no guess, let's have a look. Right, Seb, back over the dam wall once again. Or actually, let's go past quarantine. Don't know how I missed these tracks this morning. I was clearly not thinking very well this morning. Ooh. HA, you wondering if I think enough rain has fallen to last the dry season? Yeah, maybe just enough. We're not going to have a situation like we had last year where it was just completely barren of water. We had no grass. You can see already the grass layer is much more than what we had last year. So I think in that regard it's already better. But yes, I think we're still going to have a tough year. Vuurtele Dam or Gari Dam should dry up. I think Treehouse is going to be close to drying. Buffelshoek Dam I think will be okay, and I think that Twin Dams will be okay at this stage, because remember they were all deepened and dug out a little bit, so they should have hold water slightly better, so those ones will be alright. But the others I'm not so sure, and we've already seen all the mud wallows that were around have all dried up as well, so no sign of any water there, and that means that it's going to be tough to find water. In terms of the grazing aspect, you can see that here on quarantine already it's starting to thin quite badly, so there's areas of soil and areas of open bare patches like what we were seeing last year. So I think we're going to get to a situation where it's going to be very dry and we're going to end up with little grass, but it's not going to be nearly like what we saw last year where it was just completely barren. So enough rain to have fallen to sustain the animals and to keep them going for the year, but not enough to have filled everything. Natalie, you saying the hippos are the worst, ones that are going to suffer the worst during droughts? Well, they are one of the ones that suffer badly. So unfortunately for them, the lack of water means that they've got to travel bigger distances to try and find the water that they need to survive, and that means that they often get caught out and they get dehydrated, and then they become victims to hyenas and lions and all kinds of other things. So unfortunately for the hippos, they do get it very badly in the droughts. The other one is obviously the buffalo. They tend to really sort of get punished, and it's almost self-induced when it comes to buffalo, because with buffalo what happens is you'll find things like zebras and wildebeest, and they struggle, but they manage to make do because they don't turn to browsing. Now buffalo often will turn to browsing when it's very dry, and that's incredibly bad for them. As they eat leaves, the tannins affect the microbes in their gut systems and actually stop them from digesting the nutrients that they're taking in, and that causes a buffalo to actually almost starve more than if they just ate the dead dry grass or looked for more dead dry grass. So it's actually a bad thing when buffaloes start to browse, and so they suffer very badly. And then the other one that suffers badly is kudu. Kudu are also not very sort of tough when it comes to drought systems. They really do battle when it comes to that. Amazing how.
And out of the grassland springs this drainage line. This is where the trees came down that the zebra were scratching each other on. You can see it's quite a substantial drainage line, and in there's a pool of water still. And having fished for most of the morning, apparently this hammerkop bird is now sunning itself and preening itself on the banks of this water. It gets its name from its distinctive hammer-shaped, well, the head has the appearance of a geological hammer when seen in profile, and it's really just not the shape of the head, it's just this feathers, this ruff of feathers that extends out the back of the head and gives this bird a very weird look, quite unique. Cocking an eye up to the sky. Some other bird of prey probably flying overhead. Now, while quite inconspicuous, barring that very bizarre shaped feathered crest that it has, rather than on top of its head extending out the back of its head, this bird builds some of the most remarkable nests. They build a nest constructed out of sticks and branches and twigs, big enough to support a full-grown man. So it's large enough, massive nest, and in quite a haphazard fashion, but the inside and central chamber is completely circular and very finely constructed, very detailed circular nest. I have yet to see one inside. There's myths that they plaster the inside of the nests as well. However, I have yet to see one that is plastered. I've only ever seen inside one hammerkop's nest, and that's because it's a completely enclosed chamber. Once the nest is complete, you can't see inside it anymore. I've seen one half constructed though, and it was the most wonderful thing. This chaos on the outside of just mix and mash of sticks with this circular thatched or woven grass chamber or a stick chamber of much finer sticks, enabling the bird to bend them into this circular fashion. Very nice. David, you think that these birds look like ducks? I also do, David. They've got a webbed foot as well. So they haven't got a clawed foot, they've got a webbed foot. And quite often you'll see them walking in the shallows and shaking their foot in front of them. And what they're doing is they're trying to disturb a bunch of crustaceans and insects that live in the mud to come up out of the mud, and then they pluck them out of the water and pop them into their mouth. Look how uncomfortable they look. Why are you sitting upside down almost? Obviously got wet this morning fishing and is enjoying the sun drying out its feathers. Yeah, eyes closed already? No, not quite. How bizarre. We'll see if as we carry on with this drainage line, as we get into a forest in front of us here, I'm sure we'll be able to see their nests. They're quite common birds around here. I'm thinking that why this bird is so relaxed here on the banks of this little seep is because its nest is quite close by. So we found the origin of the trees, most likely, that the zebra were scratching themselves on, and that's from the thicket that's in front of us over here. So we've gotten to the wooded portion of this drainage line just off here. And you can see that they're fairly large trees inside there. And I think that the elephant come and push those trees down, and then they get washed down this creek or ravine and spill out into the marsh where we saw them just now with the zebra using them as a scratching post. Let's go forward and go and see if we can find evidence of the next generation of scratching posts. Oh, it's been such a lovely morning this morning. Myself and Xander just came off the mountain, spent some time with some lion, who then disappeared into a thicket. And after that, we've made our way through to a marsh and are now traveling up the banks of a creek, or a drainage line as we call it, quite deeply incised into the alluvium of the Mara floodplain, and hoping to find, I don't know what I'm hoping to find actually, something different, something we haven't seen before. Fighting. Tormented zombie owl, you wanted to know what tree surprises me the most in the Mara. It would have to be the two trees. The Warburgia, which I know from the Kruger is a little shrub, critically endangered, and the Boschia foetida, the shepherd's bush. In the Kruger, the Boschia foetidas rarely grow into a tree. Here they grow into these giants of trees that, of course, because I want to show you one, I can't find. There's a Boschia there. So that lone tree out there is a Boschia tree, which in the Kruger I would be able to jump over with enough conviction. That one, yeah. Here they grow into these trees that you see there. Absolutely fantastic. The largest Boschias I've seen in the Kruger have been on the Lobombos and half that height. Here they grow to giant trees, old trees. And the next was the Warburgias, which I'll show you now. Those are the trees that that the giraffe crop so nicely into their flat-bottomed shape, and we'll find some inside here. In the Kruger National Park, they also just grow into a shrub, and there's maybe 1 or 2 stands of these trees left in the park. Critically endangered tree, whereas here they're very common and grow into giants that the giraffe eat and that elephants sleep under. The trees out here. There are a couple of other trees on the escarpment. The peacock tree is one that comes to mind, with apparently a beautiful spray of flowers that I can't wait to see once the growing season comes through. And a very fine leaf. There's an elephant there in the forest. Let's go there, if this road will take us there. One nice thing about exploring a new area is that all the roads that you drive on are new. So I've never driven here before. I don't know where this road goes. I assume that it goes next to the course of this water here, and that because it is on the edges of this forest, would be pretty good for things like leopard and elephant, black rhinoceros, lion from time to time. Let's see if we can get to this Ellie before he disappears into the trees. And he's also making his way down this tree line. We've got buffalo there as well, so let's see if we can show you. We've had leopard with Tristan this morning, ground hornbill and ostrich. We've had lion with myself, and now we have elephant and buffalo, which I'll show you from this little rise here. We're not going to be able to get much closer in the time that we have left, unfortunately, but let's show you what we've got as we have it. So there you go, buffalo and elephant in the same picture, and that makes up the 4. Nice, very nice day. I hope you've enjoyed the safari as much as what we have. It's always nice exploring these places, I must be honest with you. Don't know what you're going to get when you turn the corner. Have a look at this buffalo. That is so typically an East African buffalo. Very aggressive posture, nose up, face forward. You don't see that often in the Kruger unless you're on foot. These buffalo in East Africa are large, and they definitely display that cantankerous nature that they have their reputations for. Look at that head up. You can just see that that buffalo is not comfortable. Shaking his head. I wouldn't be comfortable with this buffalo on foot, even at this distance. I would be finding some trees to climb, or termite mounds. Horn tips. Yeah, look at that. Nose up. That's so typically buffalo. Before they know what's threatening them, they always face up and walk straight at the threat. And they earned their reputation as the Black Death of Africa, having killed many people and continue to do so on a yearly basis. Such a nice view. Right, the time has come for us to say our thank yous and goodbyes, I suppose. This afternoon's drive is going to be brought to you out of Djuma, and as Tristan said, it's going to be Ali and Taylor, I think, that take the drive. I don't think Taylor's taken the drive since she's come back from holiday, but from myself and Tristan and Xander, and I'm not sure who was Tristan's cameraman today, and obviously from the content ladies in both places, we just want to say thank you for your continued support. Thank you for all your patience, and keep on watching. We'll see you soon. Have a nice day wherever you are.